Sawadee good evening. Welcome to ThaiPBS English News Service. Tonight you're with me, Lung Tip Chodapalai. Prime Minister Yingluck is not yet telling reporters why an armed army general was temporarily moved from his post after submitting a letter stating that he disagrees with the defense minister's decision to promote someone else to the permanent secretary post instead of the person recommended by the incumbent Secretary General. The appointment of the new permanent secretary at the Ministry of Defense remains in limbo after Air Chief Marshal Sukampol Suwarnathat, Defense Minister, decided not to appoint the incumbent Secretary General's recommendation. General Tian Perm Thong In, Defense Permanent Secretary, wrote an official letter to Prime Minister Yingluck after the Defense Minister did not appoint General Chatri Thatti, currently a Deputy Secretary General, to the top job. Air Chief Marshal Sukampol Suwarnathat is recommending the assistant to the Army Commander, General Thanongsak Apirakyothin, for the post. Recently, without telling the press the reason, the Minister transferred General Tian, the current Permanent Secretary, to an inactive post within the ministry after he submitted a letter to the Prime Minister. It is not clear if the move is related to political rivalry. However, Prime Minister Yingluck insists politics is not interfering in the promotion of the top army officials. She insists the armed forces remain united, but she did not explain why the permanent secretary was transferred to an inactive post after submitting a letter to her. Furthermore, the General Secretaryu, who is also being transferred. The permanent secretary position is one of the 5 most prestigious job posts in the Royal Thai Army and plays an important role in the Army's decision-making process on many issues, including its stance on politics. Members of the Advisory Council for Administration and Development of the Southern Border Provinces remain firm in their decision to quit en masse if the government does not scrap the Southern Border Provinces Administration Center, or SBPAC. Meanwhile, Major General Dittapon Satsasamit instructed agencies in the southernmost provinces to tighten security.
After the meeting of the Southern Border Provinces Administration Center, or SBPAC, which is headed by Deputy Prime Minister Yuttasak Sasiprapha, Major General Dittapon Satsasamit said the meeting was to follow up on operations in the restive south, and related agencies were instructed to strengthen security and set up checkpoints to inspect vehicles. However, the meeting expressed worries about stolen cars, as they might be used in future car bomb attacks. Therefore, authorities need to work together and be very alert. Commenting on the fire that broke out in a car showroom in Pattani Province, Major General Dittapon indicated that the case is still under investigation and all possibilities behind the attack are being taken into consideration, including local politics, personal conflicts, and insurgency. However, as for the role of the SBPAC, Chayong Mani Rungsakul, one of the members of the Advisory Council for the Administration and Development of the Southern Border Provinces, firmly believes that the work of the Southern Border Provinces Administration Center duplicates the work of other agencies. Therefore, if the government continues to allow the center to operate, the SBPAC might become a consolidated seat of power and thus violate the Southern Border Provinces Administration Act of 2010. Also, any changes to the operational plans for solving the restive south need the approval of the Advisory Council first. If the government does not scrape the SBPAC, all the 49 members of the Advisory Council say they will quit.
Thailand's former Prime Minister Aphisit Vejchaishiwa arrived at the Department of Special Investigation, or DSI, today to give evidence in an ongoing investigation in the crackdown on anti-government protesters in 2010. At least 91 people were killed and more than 2,000 wounded in what became known as the Red Shirt protests, which paralyzed the streets of Bangkok for 2 months. The protesters accused the then Prime Minister Aphisit of rising to power illegitimately, supported by the military. The protests were brought to an end in a government-ordered crackdown.
วันนี้ผมต้องมาดูว่าเขาจะสอบถามอะไรบ้างนะครับแต่ว่าได้ประมวลเหตุการณ์ทั้งหมดมาเพื่อให้เห็นภาพรวมเกี่ยวกับการตัดสินใจของรัฐบาลในขณะนั้นครับ
He said that I've been gathering evidence from that period, including on the government's action at that time. This case also involved terrorism. The army has denied any involvement in civilian deaths. Abhisit was Prime Minister at the time of the April and May protests, and many Red Shirt supporters have called on the current Yingluck Shinawatra government to bring to account those responsible for the deaths and injuries. In 2009, Program for International Student Assessment ranked the average science and mathematics scores of Thai students at 49 out of 65 participating countries. This poor ranking has been attributed to a lack of integration in the science curriculum, and education experts are urging improvements in the national standardized test and the way teachers are being evaluated.
A finding by the Program for International Student Assessment, or PISA, showed that Thai students lack analytical skills and have trouble building on what they already know. In 2009, the average science and mathematics scores ranked Thai students 49 out of 65 participating countries. With an average score below that of students in the OECD countries, Thai kids are 2 years of education behind their foreign peers. At a national conference on upgrading the quality of science education, Basic Education 2012, which brought local and foreign education experts together with government representatives and hundreds of teachers nationwide, there was a consensus that reforming learning and instruction begins by changing the Ordinary National Education Test, or ONET, which is the national standardized test covering 8 major subjects and is required of students at 3 education levels, grade 6, 9 and 12.
ถามว่า ONET เนี่ยได้ทดสอบความรู้อื่นหรือเปล่า
ONET primarily tests the students' recall of textbook content. As a result, those who perform well are those who memorize well. However, at present, we don't just want students who can regurgitate what they've learned. We want students who can think critically and solve problems, which are the skills that the ONET does not test for.
Additionally, the science curriculum in Thai schools needs more integration among intersecting concepts in science disciplines. For instance, instead of only teaching the concept of energy in a physics class, teachers in other science classes, such as earth science, also need to cover the topic so that students are exposed to the connections between what they learn in a broad range of subjects. They should be taught the big ideas instead of the nitty-gritty, which can be too specific and demanding for what they should know at this stage of education. Knowing the general concept, however, students can then build upon their understanding and improve their analytical skills. At the same time, Thai education has to move beyond classroom learning and spread out into the real world.
คือการปฏิรูปที่บอกว่าไม่ใช่เรียนเฉพาะในห้องเรียน ต้องเรียนไปนอกห้องเรียน
Students shouldn't just be learning in the classroom. They also have to learn from outside their classrooms, especially in the disciplines of science and technology, where knowledge can be found in many places, in both the industrial and service sectors. Schools need to seek cooperation with businesses and factories to arrange educational workshops for the students, who are, after all, the country's future and their prospective employees.
Education experts advise that science is always changing, so it is not just students who need to learn new things. Teachers also need to advance their knowledge to improve instruction. The suggestions that were presented in the conference will be proposed to the Education Ministry to be included in future education reforms.
Building confidence and providing accurate figures are important strategies for attracting more investors to Thailand, especially as we approach the formation of the AEC. Earlier, I spoke with Associate Professor Somchai Phakaphaviwatt, an economics and political scholar, who pointed out that Thailand export growth of 9% is still optimistic. He is concerned about the government's preparations for the effects of a global economic downturn, which is set to further negatively impact the country's exports.
One is what we call fact and reality. That is already happened. So you speak what really happened, it's okay. But the other one is what we a truth or fact that will happen in the future. So this is the perception. So when we talk about the public figure, you are entitled speak something optimistically, but within the range that you are not lying. But if you know beforehand that what you are going to talk about your perception is something that is inachievable, that is a lie. So the public figure have to take care of the limit of speaking what is really happening, what you really think, but not to lie beyond what is happened.
But the export number, when we say like 15% and 9%, is a little bit different between these two numbers.
When we talk about the export figure in the future, it is based on what we call the hypothesis. Of course, if you are responsible for the future trend of the public, you can have your hypothesis and give what we call a perception, a perspective, or a more optimistic is okay. So that is not beyond what we call touching the byline. But if you look at the figure from the beginning, frankly speaking, the 15% figure is quite over optimistic. You can look at what happened, but it's okay if you really believe it. But it's not achievable. It's okay. Yes, I have to adjust. So now the Minister of Commerce has already adjusted downward to 9%. Frankly speaking, I may be wrong. I believe that the figure is a little bit too optimistic. Looking at what happened, if you look at what we call the future trend of the world, even IMF has already adjusted downward twice, and maybe the third time in the future, because what happened in Eurozone has already deteriorating. I expect that there will be another downward adjustment for the Eurozone because of the recession happening, touching in a more what we critical level to Greece, Spain, and all the other. So I expect that with the Eurozone economic growth to be adjusted downward, that will affect America, affect China, affect BRIC, and even Thailand. So the whole, including the ASEAN, have to adjust to what we call the perspective. So frankly speaking, I look at what happened. Maybe the world economy is deteriorating a little bit downward than previously anticipated. But of course, our export that is expanding as number one is the ASEAN, and as a country number one is China. We have to adjust to accordingly. So I expect that the figure could be adjusted downward.
Weather experts in South Korea have estimated that Typhoon Bolaven, currently blowing through the island of Okinawa, Japan, will strike coastal areas of South Korea tomorrow. South Korean Prime Minister Kim Hwang-sik chaired an emergency meeting in Seoul today to discuss preparations for the expected arrival of Typhoon Bolaven. The Prime Minister of South Korea told officials at the meeting to remain calm and work hard to protect people's life and property. Meanwhile, in Okinawa, Japan's meteorological agency advised people to stay indoors and warned that the storm's strong gusts could be powerful enough to overturn cars and cause waves of up to 12 meters high. There have been no reports of major damage so far. However, 2 people have suffered minor injuries and 300 people have taken shelter in public buildings, while more than 75,000 households are without electricity. Today, local media in Indonesia are reporting that a small plane with 4 people on board, including an Australian businessman, has crashed in Kutai National Park.
Indonesia's Metro TV quoted local officials as saying the plane crashed into trees in the national park and burst into flames. The plane was reported missing by local television sometime after it left an airport in Samarinda last Friday morning to survey a coal mining site. Peter John Elliott, an Australian from Elliott Geophysics International based in Perth, Australia, was on board, along with 2 of the company's Indonesian staff, Sutoyo and Janri Henrial, and the pilot, Captain Bashir. The bodies were recovered and taken to a police forensics facility in Samarinda, Central Kalimantan. Hugh Adams, ThaiPBS.
Thank you, Kun Hugh. Here at ThaiPBS News, we have new job opportunities for English language reporters working for our English news service. If you are interested and would like more information, please visit ThaiPBS website and send your resume to us at job@thaipbs.or.th. And that wraps up tonight's editions of Thai PBS English News Service. Thank you for watching. I'm Lung Tip Chonapalai. Have a good night. สวัสดีค่ะ